like to welcome you to this day of pretty remarkable talks. I've not been directly involved in giving the talks, I won't be, but I've moderated many sessions before this one, and I will moderate this one also. And I've also gone through everyone's slides and helped them with this, putting together the slideshow, and I can assure you that it's a very interesting and pretty remarkable journey that you have ahead of you for today. All of which is Mishraji's brainchild. He's the one who's conceptualized this IDC, the India Discovery Center seminar series, and he's nurtured people and mentored them and provided them with the scholarship needed and cajoled and sometimes yelled at them too, but he's the one that's brought it all together, and we should really give him So our first speaker today is Hardeep Mann. Hardeep is a textile designer and a social activist. With family rooting and upbringing, she has developed a sincere attachment to the Indian culture and to understanding its diversity. She's an active member of the South Asia Center in Cambridge and participates regularly with meetings in the India Discovery Center. So she has today put together what I thought was a visually very appealing presentation on the geography and people of this period, as reflected in many different aspects. How did they manage to prosper? How did they expand, etc.? And the topic of great interest, even and especially in current times, is that of how did diversity develop and what is the sort of current, how has it percolated down into our current society? So Hardeep, welcome.
Yes, I'd just like to introduce, because I'm the first in this series, the Indian subcontinent became home to humanity in early ages of human development. Its riches were land, mountains, forests, rivers, vegetation, and weather. Himalayan mountains and surrounding sea protected this area, giving humanity time to create a land of plenty with their own creativity, philosophy, science, politics, economics, the village, and joint family. More important, putting humans at center stage of these activities, humans went forward to fulfill their needs. Food and shelter came first, in turn giving rise to the agrarian state and organization. Pooling resources and humanity together, we witnessed the flowering of the Indian subcontinent. Unique varieties of culture, languages, religions, music, and dress. I'm a designer, so I was particularly excited how the dress and coloring came together. We are reviewing this history from 5 AD to 15 AD. First, I'll begin with how was land divided. There were a lot of empires, kingdoms, and rajas, which was the superstructure of this of the Indian subcontinent. Versatile and strong was the agrarian village. Its base, it continuously created food, wealth, and trade. Village economy was the hallmark of the Indian subcontinent. The kings and chieftains in the internal and external regions were in constant struggle with each other for state and surplus wealth. And that was internal and external, meaning the outside, people that came from outside, and also the internal kingdoms. Next slide. Okay, so 500 AD to 750 AD, Arabs, the Hephthalites, entered India, invaded India. The Arabs came by sea. They were traders, and they would ship through the seas, and this is how they came in. They invaded Sindh, Multan, settled for a short time, and many returned back to Arabia. This condition, really what it did was, from the northwest and from the west east, it blocked the pathway of trade. And this also changed the historical memory and connection of these areas. New cultures formed, going from Buddhism and integrating Islamic thought and religion. From this time on, many invasions took hold from the northwest. Next one, thank you. Invasions into the Indian subcontinent are many. And if we look at the Delhi Sultanate, 1236 to 1335, but this is a continuous happening in the northwest. So the northwest really saw invasion after invasion after invasion. But if you look at the map, you can also see that how far nearly all of the Indian subcontinent was ruled by the sultanates. Next one. But now I want to take you on a little bit of a different journey. The invasions are taking place, but what's happening to the people? So the people of the Indian subcontinent, first I'll tell you that they live everywhere. People live in the states, regions, mountains, forests, villages, towns, cities. Next one. I'll give you a little bit about castes and people of the subcontinent. There was a section that was divided into castes, and there were also other people. So the caste divisions were Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, Jats, untouchables, tribals, forest dwellers, hunter-gatherers. And I feel like there are many more that I don't have knowledge of. Position in social standing at one aspect is priests, kings, senapatis, businessmen, farmers, craftsmen, laborers, artisans. And then there was a huge mixed caste that came into being in this 1,000 years. Women were part of caste, but were under patriarchal norms. Next one. Okay. Is there something missing? Anyway, we can go to it. People were involved in agriculture and trade. This is really a wonderful time for the Indian subcontinent because it's flourishing. It's creating, and it's creating in all aspects. And in agriculture, the land cultivation has increased. Crop diversity is unbelievable. We'll see that later. Irrigation improves. Exports expand. But exports expand, and also you see that they also can be minimized because of the invasions and the conditions that come into play. but agriculture continues and expands. That is very important for us to understand that. And large surpluses produced. The trade, production diversity, assembly line production began. They knew how to pull things together, how to create in mass. And technology was very important, and they flourished in the technologies. So the traditional village economy was stable and expansive. Not affected by the market. Trade was affected by internal and world market events. In other words, because products were sold to the world, so if things were happening in the world, it would also affect the Asia continent. Next. Okay, this is food economy and socialization. Food in life, in daily life. About half the people ate rice as a staple diet, while the remainder ate wheat, barley, maize, and millet. There are geographical differences in areas and diet. There are those who eat meat and those who are vegetarian. Food customs at ceremonial occasions. Every caste, tribe, town, village, and religion had a panoply of traditional ceremonies that are observed with wide participation. Most of these ceremonies have agricultural and religious basis. And the majority are linked with the deities. A lot of the villagers had a deity of their own, then the Gram had a deity of its own. So it was a continuous emerging of the deities, a symbol of differentiation. There are many symbols of class differentiations, because each caste tends to have its own subculture. People's locations in this system can be gauged according to the way they dress, their names, speak a local dialect, the deities they worship, who they meet with publicly, location of their housing, and their occupation. Signs of where individuals and their families are situated in the caste hierarchy. The relative status of women and men. Patriarchy is the basis of that. Becomes in time the common village Indian family, patriarchal, and the gender relations within it. This is true in all family systems except the matrilineal systems of the tribals, hunter-gatherers, and forest dwellers. It is said that a woman must first obey her father, then her husband, and then her son. This seems to be the normal pattern as she goes through life. The opinion of the male head of household is especially important in the arrangement of marriages, because in most communities these are effectively marriages between two families. Since it is the male head who controls the family finances, it is he who pays or receives a dowry at the time of a child's marriage. Although older women can be very influential behind the scenes, they wield little legal authority in property and marriage matters. Okay, now this is very important. Like, how does Indian subcontinent progress? Education. Education was a very important part of this culture. And these are some of the universities, very famous universities. And on the other side, on the right side is the vocational schools. Thousands of schools in every region. They were close to villages and were run by artisan and masters guilds. Individual masters in villages, apprenticeships, funded by the trade guilds. Yes. And these are some of the universities at the bottom. Okay. At a certain point, what takes place is that there is first of all, there's a block on the northwest, but trade is still being done there because they've come to each other's understanding. But the rest of the Indian subcontinent finds also other ways and also expands into trade routes into the east. And these are all the different places of influence. Many go and settle in these areas and do business. The production is done in the Indian subcontinent, and then it's shipped over, and there are traders in Indian subcontinent, the traders there, Indian traders, who then sell and buy and also expand to other areas. Next one. Okay. These are agriculture exports. These are some of them. And like the commodity manufacturing coconuts and oranges in South India were very important. And this was done in the 10th century. The other, ginger, was a very big market, and it was controlled by the Arabs because it went to Europe, and ginger went to Europe. I mean, I just picked a few here. It is a massive export that's taking place from 6th century and continues on. Spices and commodities, international trade also expanded. Diets changed from boiled food to spicy food, creating explosive tastes. Continue. These are the different dishes from different, just a few of the different areas. There's just not enough pages to fill in this. So cotton yarn, this one is my favorite. Cotton yarn color technology. And what I want to say is, cotton involved bonding the dye to fiber to absorb the dye. This is very important because, don't forget, India's colors, the brightness of color, we always say, where does it come from? Why is it? One, I think it's the philosophical conception of rus, that the one who wears things must have the rus, and the one who sees this color must also arouse rus in them. So I think this philosophy is a really important one. And they created the more daunting technology in which color was very bright, and also it didn't fade with light. Next one. Well, there you are. From that color, you come to the saris, cotton and silk. This is a different way of wearing. I think there's even more ways of wearing the sari, but these are a few I chose. And you can see the silks and the cottons and the fineness, the gold thread, the brightness, and the theory of, they looked at nature, how flowers, and what colors flowers came in, they replicated. Next. This is wool, embroidery, kashmir and ladakh. The sheep had such fine hair, and that they were able to create very fine wool. Next one. This is West Afghanistan, Punjab, Sindh, Salwar Kameez, Lehenga. I mean, these are also some aspects of the old and the new coming in, and the embroideries and the colors are vibrant and beautiful, and the fabrics are just amazing. Next one. And this I just what is a little older, but you can already see that development of jewelry and what kind of wear and and attitude. There's an attitude if you look into that woman. She is confident, and she's there, and she knows she's there. This is ornaments. Ornaments were huge, and the ornaments included necklaces, anklets, ring, bangles, you name it. And it came in all kinds of stones, and in gold, silver. Continue. Continue. Yeah. And what we have to remember is that who did all this work? See, this is where it's very important. It's the village community. It is the village society that creates this. So Shudras and women and Shudras were the bulk of this village society: agriculture, artisan, craftsmen, weavers, potters. Get that there. I have to mention them. Carpenters who were industrious. They were producers of wealth. Women took care of, I think this is really important, women took care of the extended family. So can you imagine when you look at the extended, millions of extended families, millions of families that are being looked after by someone. And this is work, women do this work. And also participated in agriculture, labor, cooking, you name it, they did it. So this social status of women in Shudras eroded through religious pressure, but I think we also need to put a question of economic pressure as well. Next. Okay, so national wealth increased, individuality produced new groups and castes, caste disparity and repression developed. Economy gradually became unsupportive of people who created the wealth. But I think it's not quite in this time. This is something towards a later century that it takes place. Women, Shudra, artisans were the bulwark of this economy. How could they have changed their position? What changes were developing in the land roads? This to me was very important in land relations. And why was hereditary ownership being introduced around this time? And how did it affect the agriculturalist?
Any questions?
Questions?
Hardeep?
What was the education systems in the villages and towns during that period of time?
Repeat the question.
Yeah. How was the education system developed, or where was it?
What type of education system?
What type? You know, I mean, there was the Gurukul schools, but there was schools and learning in the villages also. So, sort of certain basic schooling was taking place all over the country. And also, I think we can also look at it from the point of view, you would get a lot of like sadhus and other people coming in which they would school, not just children, but school the whole community and villages.
Can I add to that? Dharampal goes over this in this book, Beautiful Tree, where how every village had its own education system. He has actually gotten data from the British records to show that there was an indigenous education system which was very well spread, and it basically due to that went off after Macaulay's system of education came in. Those went away.
Went away.
Yeah.
Yes, no, that is very important. That you can't develop this much in a society without also coming together and being educated. And what does education mean? Is schooling as well, part of schooling. So that was really, I think, a very important factor of this society, that it found education to be one of the most important things that needed to continue and to develop. And if you look at the philosophical conception, the ideas of this society, they come through this learning and creating.
If I can interject, I think as you gradually will see through the day, the people become creative, individualistic. So education becomes mostly home-based. It becomes individual family. The skills get transferred. Artisans teach their children, family members. The cottage industry develops. So it's not that the schooling that we think of schooling now. Schooling is how do you do excel in art, excel in literature, excel in puja, excel in creating stuff. food, anything. So those kind of things, but which becomes powerful, books get written, we'll cite some books, but more books came, specialized books. Life became extremely technical. The neighbors may not know the other's language.
Thing is, in India, that independence, the hierarchy of the people are really
Yeah, we'll come to that, we'll come to that.
Change,
Yeah.
become literate to illiterate.
Right, how it changed the good story, we'll not come there.
One more question?
No, I just want to add also, like in this period, you have 4 or 5 kinds of schools. You have pathshalas, you have qaidas, you have trade schools, and then you have religious schools. So there are 5 kinds of, and in Punjab it continues until Ranjit Singh. So you basically have 5 kinds of schools. And this was as late as 1860s, reported by Lechner Commission on Education.
There was another question.
Yeah, so you made a statement about further research on the hereditary transfer of
Yes, yeah.
land.
Yeah.
So is there any evidence that shows the land was in fact owned by individuals, and how does that connect with, let's say, the
Well,
kingdom
it's,
or the realm
yeah.
that they belong to?
It looks like it looks like by like 6th century there was motion in that the land, earlier period, the land, even if a priest the king had given a priest land, but when he passed away, that land went back and could be given to the next. But now what was happening was that land was kept by the family. So that is what the hereditary aspect is, that land was kept through the ages from now. So, but it was very small in 6th century, but then you're going to see a period where it really develops into, and this is where you have like the talkers come into being. So this is the creation of that relationship that there becomes landowners, and landlordism begins, and this is the stepping stone of how that develops.
But was the land transfer, was the private ownership of the land with mainly the priestly class or with everyone?
No, it was mainly, I think that's why it was the elite. Like, for example, the king could give land to the priest, to the senapati, and, so it was like there was only a certain direction it was going to. So those are the ones that become the landlords at the end of the day.
I think I think it's a very key point, and that leads to India's poverty today. That is, the land was generous. People could cultivate. People who had talents, they could be rewarded. Land was the reward. So now, however, once that land gave them food gave security. People could do stuff. The artisan who goes to build the temple also has food at home. But gradually, which we have not examined fully, but we think happened, that land was taken away slowly. And by the time Mughals and the British and so on, people are displaced.
Yeah.
So the artisans now become labor. That's because they don't have any place to eat food. So that's a larger story, sad story. And people could not, I think it's manipulation, political, we do not know. But we think that's the story. All right, shall we move on? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Prem Nagar, who's a technology professional and works for Oracle Corporation. He's a researcher in the field of cognitive science and contributes scientific papers in the field. He's a poet and a scholar in Hindi and serves as the director of the India Discovery Center. So he's been one of the stalwarts of this movement which started with Mishraji. Prem will talk today about language and literature. He has a comprehensive analysis of how these two aspects of the society developed during the Hindu period. He'll talk a little bit about grammar and the development of regional languages and how the regional scripts developed. You talk about literature, poetry, drama, etc. So sit tight. It's a fascinating journey.
Thank you, Dr. Javedi. So this is the topic language and literature during 500 current era to 1500 current era. So let's establish the context that around 500 current era, what was the situations? So the native language of the mother tongue which we speak, these languages are rooted in this particular period. Around 500 current era, the language which was in vogue at that time was Sanskrit, Prakrit, there are varieties of Prakrit, Pali, and Apabhransh in the north of India. And in south of India, it was Tamil and Dravidian language of common people. Now, Apabhransh is a mixed vernacular language. Now, I have summarized this period as something like this. So, the highlights of this period, if I look at it in the language, so the development of formal grammar for the regional languages that happened, and formalization and acceptance of scripts, which starts from Brahmi to Devanagari ultimately, that happened. A lot of analytical work which was done on words and sounds that led to the theories of perception and communication. Then under literature, the Ramayana and Mahabharata and certain scriptures, they were retold in the regional languages. The poetic expressiveness, that's were modeled and analyzed, and the prolific literature in poetry and drama was developed. Religious literature was elaborated in the monasteries and seminaries, and secular literature on art, music, medicine, architecture, and agriculture was developed. We go to the next topic about the languages. Now here I'm putting together a particular aspect. Now we heard in the people in geography section and subsequent Hindu discussion, the people in general were very prosperous and content. But people in the region needed a common language to communicate and transact. Now, what is a language? Now, language is a communication tool in making sense of expressed sound, what we are speaking. And the grammar is a product of codification through analysis. Now, that's the angle which we have. Now, this picture essentially talks about what was the context, what kind of languages existed at that time, Sanskrit, local dialect, Apabhransh, Pali, Prakrit. And then within a region, a principal dialect takes the a final shape of a regional language. We look at Natyashastra, which was a 400 current era, that describes 7 different types of Prakrit, which was available at that time, which includes Shorasainik, Magadhi, Armani, and Dakshinatya. These are some of the examples which are available. Buddhism and Jainism adopted Prakrit's derivatives, and Pali in Buddhism and Armani in Jainism, that was adopted. A language of literature in North leaned on Paninian Sanskrit, while in South, Tamil language dominated. Dialects in east and west of Ganges were labeled as Apabhransh by Patanjali, and regional languages developed by synthesis of local dialects for the purpose of administration, trade, education, and communication. Expressiveness in human communication developed as a linguistic structure, and melody and rhythm became essential in literary compositions. Now let's look at this chart. little populated chart. But this deals with, under North and East, what around 500 current era, what was the language region, and what was the principal dialect which established a derivative language by 1500 current era, and what all attributes that language attained by this time, which is a script, a grammarian, who was the grammarian for that particular language, how many consonants and vowels. So this is how I have just characterized, because it's a huge topic, we can't cover quickly. So if I look at Punjabi language, now it was in the Punjab geographical area, which is a 5-river area. The principal dialect, or I understand, is the Thaka, and the Gurumukhi was the script which was governed for Punjabi language, and Guru Angad Dev was the grammarian who established the consonants and vowels and grammar and various aspects of it. And there are 33 consonants and there are 10 vowels. The Hindi, they did not. There are 3 dialects which has played a principal role in creating a language for Hindi. The protoform of Hindi was Hindari, and they used the Devanagari script. The grammar is unknown, and there are 33 consonants and 11 vowels. And let's go to the Afghanistan, that area, where Afghanistan, North India, that area, a new language was established at this time, which is a completely new, because with the invasion of a lot of people from the other side. They were speaking Arabic and Persian languages, and with the mix of Khari-Boli or Hindi and Persian Arabic language, these were the 2 major dialects which were, which synthesized Urdu as a language in this particular region. We come to, let's say, east of India, which is, let's say, Oriya language. It was the Urda Maghdi principal dialect, which became Oriya language. Bengali is the principal dialect which was used, and Bengali language per se was created. They have a particular way of number of consonants and vowels, and there is an extended vowel, that idea. And Assamese, the Maghdi was the principal dialect, and then this was in Assam and Meghalaya, that area. I'm not going into details for every row. But let's look at the west and south. Similar idea, there are 3 columns. And if you look at the Multani language, which was in the Multan and Lehana, that geographical area which is near Afghanistan and Pakistan. So the Karyaki or Saryaki, that was the principal dialect which created this particular language. If you come to Gujarati language, now Gujarati language used by a particular tribe and a Saurashtrian language, which was also is a mix, and Kutchi language. And so these are 3 different principal dialects which was used, and a language was created in the region which is north-south of Mount Abu and Saurashtra, that area where this particular language was created. Now, if you come to the south, in the Tamil Nadu, that area which is we call Tamil Nadu today, and Sri Lanka. So old Tamil language, which was there, that was formalized and it became a Tamil regional language, and Tamil Brahmi script was established. There is a grammarian Agastya and Tolkappiyam with 18 and 12, meaning 18 consonant and 12 vowels. So they established, and this is how this language comes. Lastly, in this slide, I'm taking Malayalam language. So a Nagari Malayalam was the dialect that was used, and this is the derivative which was created at this time. The whole point is the synthesis and amalgamation of local languages and their codification led to the development of the principal regional languages. Now, after all, so many languages are there, and every 10 miles there is a different language. So you have to come to some kind of common language structure. So this is the process they followed. Now we come to the next aspect of it, the script. Now, need for writing led to the formalization and adaptation of the scripts for the regional languages. Now, if you look at the script as an idea, so we go to the Indus period. So the Proto-Brahmi script, which is the Indus script, which we call it, people started calling that as a Proto-Brahmi script. That was available. And Brahmi script, which is also can be looked at 600 BC on a particular coin. The Kharosthi script is considered to be a modified Brahmi script. And the regional languages adopted Brahmi and then modified Brahmi script. And for their particular languages, those scripts are now called Nagari, Bengali, Sharda, Modi, and there are a variety of other scripts. The Devanagari script became most popular, and many languages adopted that. Modified Devanagari became Gujarati script, and Nanda script was evolved for Urdu, Punjabi, and Sindhi. A Devanagari related to Nandanagari, there are certain manuscripts available in South. Now let's look at this chart, and which is very interesting because I put them together in terms of the periods. Now we call them Indus period, let's say beyond 2000 BC, Vedic period, then Classical period, Golden period, Hindu period, like that way. Yeah. So in Indus time, it was a Proto-Brahmi script. In Vedic time, Proto-Brahmi becomes Brahmi script. Kharosthi script was developed around Classical period. Then during the Golden period, it was Gupta, Kalinga, Rajputa, and Kadamba, scripts. And during Hindu period, which is the 500 current era to 1500 current era, many scripts were developed, as you can see this spread. And at the right side, you will see the examples of how an Indus script looks like, what a Brahmi script looked like, how a Sharda script looked like, how a Nagari script looked like. So it's just a view of the various scripts which developed during this particular period. Now, this is a very interesting slide, and this is based on the compilation done by James Prinsep in 1838, where based on certain inscription which he found in stones or copper plates, right from 500 BC till 1100, 1200 current era, he put them together, and these are all consonants, and he put them Devanagari consonant, and you will see the progression of these scripts, and you will find by the time it comes to 1100, 1200 current era, the script starts assuming curves and rounds, so it becomes more artistic. Now, it is also needed that when you are reading something, it has to be consistent. It has to be proper so that your readability is same as what the person was writing. So that's the purpose, I think, we first have gone into this entire thought process. Now, the next aspect of the language is the vocabulary. And I'm taking just one example of vocabulary of one language. So words in a language fit into 5 principal categories. And these 5 principal categories are, listed here. So tatsam. Now these are the words which are inherited from Sanskrit via Prakrit, and then Hindi has then adopted. Now if you take the example of noun, which is name, in the Sanskrit it was pronounced noun, and also in Hindi it is pronounced noun. So it was completely inherited. Ardhasam, those words which came from Sanskrit, however, have undergone changes in sound So if you look at Hindi word Suraj, which is sun, in Sanskrit it was Surya. Then we come to Tadbhav, which is the word derived from Sanskrit, but they have undergone some phonological changes and spelled differently now. So if you take Karm, with that becomes Kam, and then ultimately in Hindi it becomes Kam. Similarly, Deshaj words, the local languages, acquired from local language, and the word from the foreign languages, Videshi words, they are also listed there. Now, speech becomes, writing and what the considerations at this time are. The speech sound developed into language system that structures sound. The phonological utterances are organized into prosodic units, and when you write, writing is the representational system of speech. So when you write, the orthographic representation of the prosodic unit becomes established. Now, the NLP script solves that problem to an extent, and by using a short and long vowel concept which is called matra, and with that they are able to represent the emphasis or the tone or the processing which was involved in the speech. The sentence, if you look at, the sentence has three components: a subject, object, and verb. Most of the regional languages in India, including Dravidian and Munda, follow the subject, object, verb, the structure. However, the Kashmiri and Khasi language have a subject, verb, object structure. Now, the rhetoric is necessary to steer emotion and music, dance, and sculpture. In Vedic time, there were two types of musical forms which was developed: the Gandhara, which is for the celestial purposes, and Gana, which was an informal purposes. With Datinam around 200 current lira and Radhadesh around 700 current lira, they organized a scale, the musical scale, and bass note and 22 microtonal interval shrutis that was established. However, the Natya Shastra, which was also around that time, defined the music, which is essentially vocal drupa, and dance forms, and dance and drama forms, and vocal framework and system of rhythm. The grammar per se of the music was established by Sarandev in Sangeet Ratnam. So that becomes the fundamental document on which the entire musical grammar exists. And at that time, the khayal in Turi and devotional music in north was bhajan, kriti in south, Qawwali and ghazal kind of poetry also developed at this time. Now let's come to the literature. And the literature, we will look at the prolific literature that was developed during this particular period. And I just want to give you some understanding of the development of the poetry as an idea, how the philosophical or the critical work which was done, and what the poetry should be and is. So poetry is an art of communication of idea in rhythm to create rasa, to create emotion. So Bahama established figure of speech. Dandi established a beauty. A poem's beauty is derived from its use of rhetoric. Vamana, says that the distinctive arrangement of words, the riti is the critical aspect. Anandvardhana established that poet creates a resonant field of emotion via sound. So a new definition emerges with the work of Abhinay Gupta and Mamta and Vishnath. A totally new definition which emerges, which actually incorporates all these ideas, which is a rhythmic and artistic presentation of ideas induces rasa, and that is the purpose of Kavya, any poetry. So to get to this, the poetry literature, there is a list of poetry literature and what are the major works, what is the significant or the type of literature which was created. I have to hurry because I have only 5 minutes. Drama literature, the important thing in the drama literature, there's one sentence I just want to say here, that after Kalidas plays, the poetry became a default way to create dramas. So all these plays which were created at that time, they're all poetry based. So poetry became a generic way to write dramas. If you come to the Ramayana and Mahabharata, so we have that, we like to hear stories. So stories of Ramayana and Mahabharata was very popular traditionally. So they were created, Ramayana and Mahabharata, before, in 100 to 100 BC. So these texts were translated or retold in the regional languages, and same Ramayana and also Mahabharata in its various languages, they are available. Now, coming to the devotional music, with this period found the devotion and the devotional music or devotional literature development in various aspects, and particularly I think started in south around 700 current era. So Shankara started, writing Vedantas. Then a variety of other people, including Chaitanya, they created certain devotional literature. Then there is a transformation of society through language. And now this I want to spend a couple of seconds. So Vedas was manifested through chants and was anchored in rituals. Buddha's teaching was through Jataka tales, and he was explaining theory of karma and detachment and compassion. And humans have a natural curiosity for stories that resulted into Ramakrishna stories. The concept of Dev, or God, permeated into Buddhist and Jain literature, and which accentuated the concept of God. The translation of Ramayana and Mahabharata enriched the regional languages because you acquire the new words, the new expression, new ideas. Stories inspired rise of temples and devotion. Bhakti movement and its momentum was, manifested during this time, and the philosophical foundation of Hindu society is attributed to Adi Shankara. Now, there is a list of secular literature which was developed. I'm not getting into the details of this. There is a foreign effect, or the Persian effect on the Indian languages, and vice versa as well. So Brahmagupta and other mathematicians created a text around 600, 700 current era. That text was translated into Arabic. Then over a period, that text was translated, the Arabic text was translated into Latin. And with that text, the decimal system which was created in India was spread throughout the world. Panchatantra was translated to Persian, in Persian languages. Al-Bruni wrote certain philosophy and culture about India. Urdu language emerged, which is a synthesis of Hindi and Perso-Arabic. Persian words were adopted or cut into Punjabi, Sindhi, and other languages. Persian literature, Majnu, etc., were translated into Urdu and also in Bengali. Persian words cut into Hindi, and these are the words as an example. And Mahmud Dara Shekho translated Gita and Upanishad into Persian. So there was a question about education centers. So I have just listed certain education centers here, and what is the description, some level of description which gives you an understanding of what kind of education which was imparted here, and what kind of methods and subjects they were using. So this is a more of a listing of some major education centers. which was primarily the monasteries and mathas. And the Ghatikas, the hall attached to the temple, they were used generally for debates. So at the end of my session, I just want to go through with this because this summarizes the entire thing. So there is a movement now of the transformation of orality to text to literary expressiveness. So Vedas orally recited, the literature in textual form started coming with the advent of the writing technology. And Bhagavad Gita addressed human relationship. Natya Shastra encompassed or showcased the empirical human behavior. And Kalidas, drama and poetry was for the general masses. Literature for poetic sophistication created expressivity. Jayadeva's Geet Govinda, Amir Khush was Ghazal, Kabir's Doha, Ragas and Talas were available, the rhythm and music, which created Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Odissi, Kodiyattam. The literary ornamentation was transformed into jhalkar. The alankar is getting transformed into jhalkar, that is, a singing, drama and dance, which to me is an expression of creative and content population. Thank you very much.
We can take some questions.
Yeah.
What are the hypotheses surrounding why most of these languages remained phonetic, in particular using concepts like Sandhi that facilitated this, right, compared to many other languages?
So the basic question is why the languages, Indian languages are phonetic?
Hypothesis behind all of them being phonetic.
Okay, so what is the purpose of a language? The purpose of a language is to give a structure to your sound, to the sound or the speech which you are making. Now, if you go to the Paninian time, he created a syllabic structure based on what is possible biologically, which essentially meant that when you are speaking a syllable, Indian languages are syllabic, not alphabetic. When you are speaking, you are not just speaking a alphabet, you are speaking a syllable. That means an alphabet is always with a trailing vowel. It's a consonant with a trailing vowel. So that's one. And then the combination. So in other words, the sound as an idea is inbuilt. The entire structure was created based on sound. So your question, I don't know whether I have completely answered, but that's the fundamental. Yeah.
We do research on this. Yeah.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Right. No, so join us. But the point is, the speech causes language.
Yeah.
We speak. When I'm speaking, I'm not checking how my speech goes. We don't know why we speak, what causes us to speak. But speak is a flow. Ideas come, thoughts come, they get transformed. I said that in one of the quotations, how we communicate. So the communication function is not by mouth in the brain. So there where the something happens. The how you do, who manages it. The modern psychology says we have an intentional control, like a psychological, a neurological function. So that we have not found it where it is, neurocenter. But what India has done is, or Panini has done it, has tried to capture that. Do human beings have individual syllables where a thought is contained? When I tell a ba, does it mean anything? Ma, it means anything. So I'm saying they're not simply sound bytes, they're content bytes, concept bytes. So that is, we have not gone that far. That's the India discovery. Hopefully 50 years later, new generation people will come, you will come to research on this. Ask someone, anybody who's a linguist, why do you speak? They say God gave the word, and we make the language. And no God business. All right. Any other questions?
Any other? Thank you. Thank you very much.
His talk is on philosophy and religion, and he's tackled the complex issue of how philosophical and theological developments occurred during the Hindu period, with a focus on the concept of the divine incarnation, tantric philosophy, and we'll touch back on Advaita. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Janeri, for a nice introduction. So, my topic today is study of Hindu period, 500 to 1500 CE, philosophy of religion. And so, these are the principal observations during our research. And the philosophy during the Hindu period evolved into theological interpretation. And the divine incarnations and avatars were the consequence of identifying anthropomorphic forms with the cosmic powers. And also, Tantra evolved as a religious discipline. And then Advaita was reinstituted, resulting in independent human expression. So, besides this, I'll touch upon part of Buddhism, Mahayana, and then Jainism. There was not much upheaval as far as Jainism is concerned during this period, and then I'll touch upon the religious places, practice of pilgrimage, and some 2 slides on Sufism and Islam, and the Christianity, the status of these religions during that period. So, evolution of theological interpretation. So, as per Sankhya, there is a multiplicity of the Purushas. They are different in different beings. And this is a pluralistic atheism because Sankhya was essentially atheistic philosophy. So, if the Purushas were, so the explanation by Sankhya philosophers was that Purushas were part of one God only, then they would have a common divine essence and they could not be destroyed. So, Bhagavad Gita, however, mentions 3 types of Purushas, Shar, Akshar, and Uttama. The last one is the supreme principle, that is God. And this is monistic theism. Mostly, this was the start of the anthropomorphism in the Indian religious philosophy. Also, the Sankhya and Upanishads equate Avyakta, which is non-manifest, to the Prakriti around us. But Gita says it is the Paramgati and is to be about of Krishna himself. So, this is the age of incarnations. The concept of incarnation can be traced back to the Bhagavad Gita, as you mentioned, and also when Krishna says that he becomes manifest whenever evil takes upper hand. So, yada yada dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. So, in that he says that he becomes manifest. And Mahayana, there is a similarity in Mahayana concept of Bodhisattva, which is like avatar in Hinduism. A person can become Buddha-like under certain conditions, do some meditation or yogic practices. However, avatar also means that God descends in the front of the devotee or rishi, as per Yask in his Nirukta. This is more like a mystical definition of avatar. And the concept of cosmic entity in Upanishads, like there is Brahman, who lives in all individuals as Atman, evolved into a need for individual God. And the human being could be elevated to become one with the cosmic self. So an entity that runs the physical universe needs to be of physical in nature, and that manifested itself in avatar. Also, the Shat-darshananas could not explain the life and death. So concept of avatars are brought and to explain it locally. I mean, it's not there, it is here locally. So you have to have some entity locally, presiding entity locally, who can, I mean, Brahman cannot be angry or cannot have, because it is formless, attributeless, so it cannot have any bhav. So that is brought in, the avatara is brought in to explain it locally as per the karma of the people. So you get you are born according to your karma, you die accordingly, and that is it. So the concept that then gave this concept gave rise to the powerful kings who traced their lineages from the gods. So somebody is Suryavanshi or Chandravanshi, and also the priests became the gurus, and they were called Bhudevas. So the devas on earth. The kings declared, so then different panthas were developed because this is a localized thing. Kings rule a particular geographical area, and then they became the gods locally. So just to explain the Mahayana concept, as the Mahayana, the reality as we see is just a representation of mind. So mind creates all the external objects and it appears real to us. So all objects in their states have dependent origination. So it is what is the theory of Pratyekta Samuttpada. So objects are not existent by themselves. So all the objects are dependent on the existing objects. Nirvana is the only state that is independent, that has the independent origination. So, but before attaining this state, a practitioner should work towards the enlightenment of others. This is the bodhisattva part of it. So Mahayana, this is the concept that Mahayana gave us, that anybody can attain Buddhahood and enlightenment through the practice of meditation. So then there was another school of thought that was developing, and that became from a science and philosophy to more religious practice. So this was Tantra Shastra. So Tantra was developed for medicinal inquiry into the workings of the human body. So according to Tantra, the human body is the microcosm of the universe, and its elements are associated with those and the elements around us. That's the Prakriti that follow the natural laws. So natural laws should apply to the body to keep it healthy. And in fact, the Charak Samhita and Shusha Samhita have their origination in the Tantra. So, for example, the Shava Sadhana. Shava Sadhana was not actually an occult practice, but it was rather a study of anatomy. Later on, the Tantra Shastra moved into a religious practice when you could not explain the afflictions that might have happened to people during that time. And so it was all blamed on the karma. So Tantra Shastra, so as from the previous slide, we saw that Tantra Shastra morphed into the religious practice and how it was. So Tantra Shastra was further extended to keep the body immortal. So there was another stream of this Tantra Shastra where you could attain the immortality by practicing certain processes. So they used a lot yogic processes to achieve Devi powers or become immortal, because once you become immortal, you have divine powers. So, while the Tantra Shastra traces some of its origin to Sankhya and other classical systems, the religious beliefs of the common masses were not compatible with the classical philosophy. So it was complicated for the common masses to understand the classical philosophy. So basically, common masses were worried about only their personal well-being. Everything should go smoothly, the life should go smoothly, day-to-day life should work. So this gave rise to the concept of a personal God. So they needed a personal God, devotion to whom could fulfill their worldly desires. And later on, the pantheon of gods and goddesses, they got classified as per their attributes. And they were associated with the supreme beings like Vishnu, Shiva, Shakti, Surya, and Ganpati. And many of these deities found place in the Tantra. So, now when God is earthly, you need a God to live like a human being. So to truly represent the terrestrial life, so that needed a female consort. And that is how in the Tantra, the Shakti tradition came. So Sankhya has said that there are two principles, Purush and Prakriti. So there is a male principle and there is a female principle. So Tantra used this female principle in its alchemy and its physiology, and that is Shakti, so which is the repository of power for the male principle. So the male principle being identified as Shiva, depending on your beliefs, Shiva, Vishnu, Shakti found its place as a consort for each of them. So Shakti tradition also was co-opted in Buddhism by Mahayana, because the concept of Bodhisattva. So then, now the gods are there. They had a place to have a house. They have to have a place, yeah, their house. So that time saw intense temple building activity for gods and their consorts. And temples were of magnificent proportions because of the royal patronage. So then, but also we saw a sensual depiction of the human forms in that period on the temples. So that is like from Charaka, as we studied when he gave the introduction, he was saying that Charaka says that there is a direct connection between the mind and the health. A sound mind can positively affect the health. So yoga is one path which is difficult. This needs a hard toil. But the other way is to give the mind its sensual pleasures, to keep it satisfied. So this was later assimilated into Tantra stream, and then it manifested in the sculptures such as in Khajuraho. Dr. Dasgupta will show that part. So this also, the religious practice also includes the practice of pilgrimage, and there are many important pilgrim sites in India. For Hindus, there are many reasons to undertake the pilgrimage. One is to accrual of punya, merit, cleansing of sins, or fulfillment of mundane desires. But there is a Vedic component in this, because during that time the external influence would affect your life. So any action you do, it is because of the external influence, good or bad. And the pleasing of deities would help in warding the effects of bad actions and personal well-being. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, that was the time when the massive temples were built at the places of pilgrimages. So River Ganga had many centers of pilgrimage along its bank, including Kashi, Varanasi, Haridwar, and Rishikesh. So there's Kashi Vishwanath temple, which is one of the 12 Jyotirlingas. So and the festivals that are celebrated are like Ram Leela and Shiva's wedding night, it's Shivratri. And the Hindus also undertake the Panchakroshi Yatra, which is like if you die there during this yatra, it was one of the desires of the Hindus, devout Hindus. And Buddha also delivered his first sermon at Sarnath. So we go on to the why the Ganga river is so important for Hindus. So people take bath in the Ganga river near the places of pilgrimage. So it might have some alchemy involved to Tantra Shastra, that there are positive effects on health from the water that Ganga has. Also so besides this, there are major temples in south also. One of them is Madurai, Meenakshi temple at Madurai, which is It dates back to 6th century BC, and it's mentioned in the Sangama literature. It was rebuilt many times after the multiple destruction at the hand of the foreign invaders. So Meenakshi's wedding to Sundareshwar is celebrated as a woman in the local tradition, the local Tamil tradition. Then there is another temple at Jagannath Puri, which is a magnificent temple in Puri, and it is dedicated to Lord Vishnu. It is one of the most sacred places. It is one of the Char Dhams. The famous Rath Yatra festival of Puri is celebrated to dedicate it to Lord Vishnu and Balabhadra and Subhadra. So temple offers free meals to the devotees. That indicates that it has the roots. The festival has roots in the farming community, which produce enough surplus to feed the visitors. And similarly, Ujjain is home to one of the 12 Jyotirlingas, that's in Madhya Pradesh. It's a Mahakaleshwar temple. The important thing about it is that the Shiva statue faces south. It's called Dakshinamurti. Usually it is either east or north facing. So this indicates the Tantra influence, because the followers of the Shivanatra stream who established a temple there, they moved to south. So they like to have their deity look after them in their direction. So that is how the Dakshinamurti has come. And Shivratri is one of the major festivals that is celebrated in Ujjain. So while this was going on during that period, where was the Upanishad wisdom of the human freedom? So Upanishads say that everything is evolved from Brahman and functions in and dissolves in Brahman. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahman Sajjanani Shanta Upasana. And Panchamahavatya's also declared that the Atman in you is identical with the cosmic Brahman. This assertion brought a sense of freedom among the individuals, because they were burdened previously by the Vedic regimentation and rituals. But during the late Gupta period, the Sanatana Dharma was reintroduced and Vedic rites and rituals returned. So these religious practices continued during the Adi Shankara's time. So Shankara then preached non-dualism. He brought back the Upanishadic wisdom. So his non-dualism applied to Gaudapada's, it's the extension of Gaudapada's Mandipikarika, where there is no difference between the Jeev and the Brahman. Jeev, however, does not realize that Jeev is identical to the Brahman because of the Maya, because of the superimposition of the Maya on the Brahman. So Shankara says, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, Jiva Brahma Napara. So there's only one reality, and all phenomena one is illusory. Jiva is not different from the Brahman. The Brahman is impersonal, formless, attributeless, and unchanging, and it becomes personal when it comes in contact with the Maya. And once you realize the Brahman, you get liberated. So there was a social impact of this Shankara's philosophy, because as from the Upanishadic times, as we saw that there was the people were the burden from the people were lifted, that about the bad and good actions on whole Vedic regimentation. So Shankara philosophy, it brought back the sense of unification, and all the diverse thoughts that existed during this period were unified. And the freedom of expression brought back the creativity, resulting in opulence, and this was lost during the fragmentation before this era, after the post-Gupta period, and that was restored. So there are vast Vedantic literature that is written by Shankaracharya, including Bhashyas, Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, and Bhagavad Gita, Prastanjali, as Mr. Bharati mentioned. One of his most celebrated works is Vivek Chudamani, which is the pathway to realize the Brahman. He traveled to different places in India to to spread his Vedanta philosophy by engaging discussions with the intellectuals belonging to different schools of thought. So in the process, he established 4 mathas in the 4 corners of India. So the 4 monasteries were established by him. So Vishishtadvaita. So this concept of Brahman being formalized, attributeless, and all-pervading, unchanging, was not comprehensible to the masses believing in personal God during that time. Chandracharya says, Namde Vikalpo Nirakaro Vitvacha Sarvatra Savedhyam. So that is abstract, as Mr. Bhattan said. So it was difficult for common masses to understand it. So Ramanujan then brought the concept of Vichitta, or qualified one. So he says that there is only one supreme reality. It's a personal God with all the auspicious attributes, Sat Chit and Anand. So this supreme reality or soul is different from the individual souls. And the difference is due to the avidya or ignorance. And salvation can be achieved by devotion to this God. Nimbakacharya then, the next century, saw Nimbakacharya's philosophy develop. And he agrees with Ramanujacharya that there is a threefold reality, God, soul and matter. But he also says that there is a Veda way. So his doctrine says that God is by his own nature at once one with the with and different from the world. So he doesn't. So that doctrine is a little bit different from Ramanujacharya's Vishishtadvaita. So then Madhvacharya came in the late 12th century, 13th century, and he proposed another philosophy, Dvaita, which is Dvaita, that differentiates between the Brahman, Jeev, Ajeev, and where the Brahman is Swatantra or independent reality, and Jeev and Ajeev are Patantra or dependent realities. So the thing is that any attempt to unify Atman and Brahman undermines the supremacy of the later, because then why to do all those pujas and worship of the God if Brahman is same as the Atman? And Madhva says that Vishnu is none else but the Brahman, and devotion to him will lead to salvation. So basically there are 4 types of liberations in Hindu religion. There is Sarupta, Samyukta, Salokta and Sayujita. Sayujita means you become one with God. So that is what Advaita part of it. In later philosophies, Dvaita philosophies, you cannot become, you can become like God, but you cannot become one with God. So that is the bottom line difference between the Dvaita philosophy and the philosophy. That there was not much going on as far as Jain religion was concerned, but there is no concept of a creator God, and that has been there for quite some time. There was some fragmentation in the Jain religion, Shvetambar, Digambar, Therapanthis. But they do worship the Tirthankars, who are the omniscient souls, and their places of pilgrimage are connected with those Tirthankars, and they are mainly believed by the Shvetambar traditions. And some of the major places of pilgrimage of Jains include Bahubali statue at Shravanbelagola, and then Dilwara temples and temples at Girnar. So Jains practice vegetarian and believe in pleasing of souls by undertaking fast. And fast and do that is one of the processes to relieve the soul from the bondage. Jains also believe in tantric rituals, as evident from their 5 types of pujas, and Navkar mantras are recited during the meditation. And then these are the festivals that Jains follow. Then the Buddhism also saw some development because of the Mahayana concept came and Bodhisattva were there. So early Buddhism didn't encourage any human representation of Buddha. But later on, during the Kushana period, there was a Gandhar influence on the religion that saw the representation of Buddha in human forms. The followers of Theravada limit the anthropomorphic representation because they say that only Buddha can be represented as human, not any other, no bodhisattva. There is no bodhisattva concept in Theravada. Then this became free from that limitation during the Mahayana time, and then there were a lot of human representations of bodhisattvas, goddesses, and gods that were co-opted from like Taras were co-opted from Hinduism. And these are the religious places like Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, and Kushinagar. So they have these religious practices that they celebrate Buddha Purnima, Magh Puja, and there are a lot of stupas. Then in the 8th century, Islam was introduced into the northwestern India when Arab commander Muhammad bin Qasim seized Sindh and Multan. Then Punjab was annexed by Turk and Afghan Ghaznavis, and that helped Islam to influence wider areas, geographical areas. The followers of Islam believe in one God and strictly shun the idol worship. One of the reasons behind the destruction of the Hindu and Buddhist and Jain temples during the Islamic rule was that they believed that only God can create the human forms, and any depiction of these was un-Islamic. But as Professor Sharma mentioned about Sufism in his talk, so Sufism came to India through Persian and Turk scholars, and their teachings are similar to like Advaita, that there is a way of ignorance and that hides the truth, and so you can remove that veil of ignorance and then realize God. And lastly, Christianity was there. There was Thomas Christians, and they were limited to the south, and they co-opted some of the Hinduism and Judaism practices for births, weddings, and deaths. And some of the Orthodox Hindu practices like caste system also remain embedded in the Thomas Christians. Thank you.
Have a little time for some questions.
Yes.
Sharmaji, a couple of things.
Sure.
I know that in limited time you could not list things, but there are major categories also there. For example, the Kashmir Advaitavad.
Right.
So there are many systems within that, Trika, Pratapikya, and so on. And let's say in South there is Shaiva Siddhanta. And even otherwise, you mentioned Nimbarka, but there is Vallabhacharya.
Yes, I was talking to.
And then there is Chaitanya,
Yes.
Shankar there
Yes.
also.
Yes.
There are several other streams.
Yes, this itself using in the song.
I know.
A lot of time.
Yeah, I just
Presently, yeah, I do agree, yes. That this Vallabhacharya and Chaitanya
Our
Sampradaya.
thinking has been that once Sankara homogenized or took the lead off, made all people equal. So everybody thought that they can have a religion. This is our, we studied it, that's how it came out. So somebody said village deities and so on. The question is, same deity may change from place to place. The same Shiva may change from place to place. The same Vishnu change from place to place. So that thing, the human freedom of worship, faith, thinking, ideas, anthropology. So those things, we don't know whether it was already there, but it comes and manifests massively. Any kind of a structure, if you have anything. So that's where, he lists and so on, but that's list is nominal. Of course. You have religion, I have religion. So that's what Giri came. See, the question is, what is Hindu? All of us are Hindus. There are many people who might say that they're not Hindus. They don't know what they are. The question is, this whole process, that human being is a human being. He has a mind, he has a thought process, and that has its own religion. It's not a binding. It's not a binding. And that's the massive unleashing of freedom in this period. Other questions? Yeah.
So I was interested in the question relating to revival of Hinduism, right, during that period. You talked about Islamic invasions and all of that. What did you find was the strength that, the religion survived? If you look at other colonies or wherever else, you'd see almost 100% of the population converting. But here, Hinduism remained pretty strong, it looks like. Is it all attributed to Shankaracharya's?
Yeah, so I think Hinduism, in fact, it affected other religions also to have them co-opt the practices, some of the practices like we saw in Christianity also.
Right.
So that was like assimilation within there. So it is very adaptable religion. What I can say that's why they survived.
More amorphous and decentralized.
Right.
As
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah.
Decent.
As compared to Buddhism, because there were the Viharas, the main people.
And there is no single entity. Right?
Yeah.
So that is
No single
decentralized.
entities. Different traditions.
Immense
different
diversity.
Yeah. That's what helped them survive.
I think Jainism probably started with that. The individual is great, I have my life, but then become regimented. Go to a temple, do something, have you been there? So what Sankara did, he threw them away. No, you don't need to do anything. You are a human being. God is in you. He's not there. So that's a very powerful thing. And whether people accepted it, how they accepted it, how it got practiced, but we will see the pictures and so on, music, architect, you will see. The man is being there and he doesn't know who else is there. He and his art. You know what I mean? So that is where it is. It's not Hinduism.
Right.
It is humanism. It is a man's freedom to express itself in excellence. The question is, however, that needs some food. The man has to come back and say that yes. You know what I mean? And when that is taken away, which apparently did, then the man can't do anything. Other questions?
So,
Yeah.
Just to add to what you were saying, what is Hinduism is just a way of thinking. It's not strictly a religion. So it doesn't impose any.
What also we learned is a pun before lunch, I think. The pun is, apparently when the Islamic people came, they knew their Islams. So they converted the Indian people back in home, back in India. And then the convert people, they didn't accept them as the original Islam. So they called them Musalman, people who have been converted, local people. So now there are two kinds of people. Islam, who are kind of people came, and Musalman, who are converts. So when they took the ruling, they had to tax people. So the other group, whosoever are not Islam or Musalman, they became Hindus as an administrative decree. And we are taking that legacy as a we're Hindus because they called us Hindus. And I don't know whether it will be thrown away in some form because it's a slave term, as we saw. Thank you.
Another little known fact about Jainism. So Jaina traditions actually existed in Tamil Nadu also.
Yeah.
So there were actually in Madurai Jaina kings and got a literature in Tamil.
Sangam literature.
Right. In fact, there are 5 main kavyam in Tamil. The first one being Silapadikaram, which was written by Irambodigal. He was a Jaina saint.
Manimekalai.
Manimekalai, Jiva Sindhamani, Vrayavati, Kundalakesi. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we break here. Lunch.